welcome back to another episode of Mass Monologue. Today, I'm thrilled to have Ganesh Datta here with me. He works with nonprofits and does a lot of social media marketing planning. Can you tell us about what you do and how you got into it?
Hi, my name is Ganesh and I'm from India. And I have been working in digital marketing almost coming up to 8 years now. So, somewhere along the line, I realized that a lot of nonprofits tend to operate in a different mode. Non-profits are the one organizations that need to take advantage of capitalism. The disconnect I saw was in social media and their online presence, which is often not planned and very free. So I help non-profits or NGOs and come up with their social media strategy and get their online act together so that they can reach the maximum amount of people.
Okay, and what I hear is you work specifically with nonprofits, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so what I want to know is a nonprofit, would you approach their social media marketing the same way you'd approach marketing a business? Because obviously there's this difference between marketing a business and being an influencer on social media. You have to
Yeah.
structure your content differently, it's got to be professional. So I'm wondering if
Mhm.
there's overlap between how you'd structure a nonprofit versus a business.
Honest, it's pretty similar how we strategize because you see, at the end of the day, social media is for reach, right? It's not for impact, it's not some magical tool, it is for reach. Most often, social media is the first contact point for a user to your organization. So just because he's going to see, he or she is going to see your TikTok doesn't mean they're going to definitely convert, but businesses or NGOs or nonprofits have a similar strategy where we are like, okay, let's reach the maximum amount of people to start with. And then once we have scaled it, then let's look at retention of users. But at the end of the day, the core target is still reach.
Yes, and what I want to ask now is we talk about reach on social media, but being someone who's dabbled in social media marketing or just having not a very in-depth, but a broad knowledge of it,
Mhm.
we'll always speak about ways to make content more engaging because the
Yeah.
more user engagement you have, that
Mhm.
impacts your reach because, the
Yeah.
algorithm pumps it out to more people. I want to
Mhm.
know, how do you make content that's engaging? Are there any tips and tricks you've used in the past that could be applicable
Mhm.
to anyone who's wants to improve their social game?
So I would say being yourself because all of the trends that you look at in social media come from a very organic place. Out of the past 100 trends, probably four or five, right, which were like pushed by planned platform. Like it might be a corporate or it might be an influencer that planned out a viral thing and it got into a trend. That's a very rare thing. So the first point is to be yourself because social media is so much like you don't know how we are going to win or what you're going to win. And the second is people try to refine their content, right? If a non-profit starts today to post social media, they are looking at somebody who has 10 million followers and they're like, okay, I need that quality, right? It could be script or video quality. And the truth is, it's not going to happen, right? Early episodes are very bad. It's not enjoyable as much. But once we get into the process of creation, over the time, the quality of what we make increases and it keeps happening. So, my suggestion or tip for anybody who's looking to market their nonprofit is refine your message. Because once you start refining your message, your quality, what to deliver on social media increases. So, that increases your chance of reaching more people or going viral.
And now I want to talk about, you were saying how some social media accounts, they've got 1 million followers. And some of the
Mm.
people I've spoken to who have large followings on social media, they've been doing it for about 5 years, 10 years. So it's just this compounding effect that has worked for them where at first, maybe even the first month, the first 2 months, the first year, you're not going to see a huge increase in the number of followers. But I'm wondering,
Yes.
how can people stay around for the long game? Because it's not that sprint to the finish line, it's a marathon, and
Mhm,
everyone I've spoken to has just reiterated this again and again. And I want
mhm.
to know, as someone who helps nonprofit, because they might not allocate as much money to social media marketing. How can
Yep.
they stay motivated to increase and improve their social game without
Mhm.
seeing the results?
So the biggest suggestion that I can give you is don't look at your followers. Because once you start looking at it and once you become a number of this person, you start to disconnect from what you're doing. You heavily on metrics to create content. And that might work for somebody who has 5K or 10K followers, right? Because they have a larger audience pool that they can test their content and refine it. But if you have 500 or 1,000 or 1,500 or even 5,000 followers, it's not worth it because the audience pool is very small. You cannot experiment, meaning you cannot experiment based on metrics alone because you have to go with your gut feeling. If you feel like, okay, I'm not getting views or people are not looking at me, but saying that, I feel like my content is good. Okay, let's keep doing that for now. People want to see results very quickly, right? That instant gratification kicks in. I understand that. But you see, the biggest trick in social media is I don't know whether digital marketers will tell you this or not, or even social media managers will tell you this or not. The biggest trick in social media is just repeating. It's boring, to be honest. Telling somebody that you love them, but every time in a unique way. And that's the whole process of just delivering the same message over and over again without boring people or repeating what you said is a very tricky position, right? And a lot of nonprofits fail at that because they feel, okay, once I said this is what my nonprofit does, their job is done, right? People have you heard of a term called as news cycle?
No, a news cycle? Is that what you said? News cycle. No, I am not
Yeah.
familiar with that.
So news cycle is like a media term, right? So that's essentially a measurement of how much long a news can sustain, right? Because if you look at media, TV media, right? There are morning shows, right? There are late night shows. So each of those slots is a news cycle. So if our conversation, let's say it was very controversial, made it to 5 news cycles, meaning it made it for like 2 to 3 days. That's a big deal, right? Because you got 2 3 days of free coverage, correct?
Yes.
So that is news cycle. Now, a typical news cycle is like a half a day, right? Now, imagine what is like a social media cycle. It's like 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So it is so micro that you cannot look for gratification within
Yes.
because you're probably one person or you probably have like few volunteers in a nonprofit that are helping you with social media. But the real question is, are they being honest? And I'm not trying to say that people are dishonest. If anybody has held a camera ever, they know that as soon as they hit the record, people modify their behavior, right?
Yes.
That's like a very big issue. So the question is, are you being honest and are you being genuine? And most people are, right? Because they are coming from a very good intention or and a very positive place. So they are, but they do not repeat the message often. And that's the biggest problem. So that's my tip. Don't look at numbers, be genuine and just be honest and keep repeating the same message.
No, I believe that's some wonderful advice. What I want to ask you now is, I've spoken to a lot of social media influencers in the past, and one of the social media gurus I was talking to was talking about virality. So they said that there's some types of content that is more likely to go viral as opposed to others. And this would be more of your controversial take, cat videos, they're filmed, and there's this category of what goes viral on social media. And
Mhm.
when we think about these things that go viral, as you said, it was a split second, that 30 seconds of virality. You've got all these views, but then it's gone the next day. And so when it comes to building a brand, having a nonprofit, being a business, being an influencer, you want to establish yourself as either a professional in a field or you want to establish yourself as a brand. You want your message to be known. And sometimes that short burst of virality, if it doesn't correlate to what you do, it's like people see that cat video, but then you have a
Yeah.
nonprofit that helps kids in Africa.
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to know
Mhm.
how we can approach social media while also thinking about going viral because obviously that's more reach, but then also being true and authentic to who you are and what your brand is, what you want to be known for.
Correct. It's a very valid, I get a very broad kind of question because not a lot of very people think about this. Like this, you offer any human being money, they will accept it. If you said, I'm going to give you $1 million, I'll be
No,
like,
I
yeah,
don't want
please.
it.
Right?
Yeah.
No, but the first instinct of a human is to accept it, right? Because it feels like a big reward, right? They're not thinking about taxes. They're not thinking about explaining to the government how they got $1 million. But they're like, okay, please give it to me. That's what being viral is, right? Because you get a million, 2 million, even 10 million impressions on something you did. So what happens is, if you want to go viral, I would say just hop on every trend that's going on right now. And I can almost bet that within like next 3 months, you could be viral. That's not a problem. But the problem is sustained growth, right? You know how people become memes, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, did they leverage that situation? Probably no. There have been very few people who became meme and cashed in successfully. I don't know the exact number, but they say around 60% of lottery and get break. So you can hit the lottery. That's not a problem. Sustaining that lifestyle, meaning sustaining that hard work that you would have to put in to retain that much influx of people, right? That's challenging for a corporation, let alone a non-profit, right? And I'm not talking about multi-billion dollar non-profits here, because of course they have their own teams and they can probably sustain it. But you as an individual, you think that you could handle 15 million people looking at your video? Most probably not, because I don't care how fast you can respond to people. A single human being can probably talk to 1,000 people a day. Now, if you just do a quick math and you say, okay, out of 10 million people, only 0.5, like half a percent of people took action.
Yes.
That is so much big. That is like imaginable. That's so much like attention that and traction that you would not be able to take advantage of. And I understand that people say, okay, we have many chat and other AI tools where I can engage with the audience. I'm like, no, because it's just a starter message, right? And irrespective of what people ask you, you just keep saying hi, right? That doesn't work. That doesn't work. My kind of take is trying to be viral has to be planned other than trying to be viral, right? But the plan is not to get viral. The plan is to sustain the growth. And there is a famous saying, right? Like any marketing is good marketing.
Yes.
Like cashing in a bad news is very, very rare. And people who do it are like legends, right? And the reason they become legends is most people cannot do that. If you draw in criticism from a big video, it will take almost, I would say, 2 months to bounce back from that. And you would have to work very hard in those 2 months. So I personally don't want to increase the difficulty of a non-profit person, by putting them in a precarious position where they have to put in the work where they did not need to, because
Yes.
you have to understand that a founder's time is very important, right? They have limited time, limited resources, and they want to get best out of it. I don't think going viral is the best way to go through that.
Okay, and now I want to ask you, what types of content have you noticed is getting the most retention on social media? And
Mhm.
also, with that in mind, I want to know, are there any social media platforms that you believe are performing better in 2020
Mhm.
compared to others? And by
Mhm.
better, I mean, can you gain more exposure on these platforms? Is it easier to
Mhm.
break through the clutter and shine? And if it is, what social media platforms are there? And how do you alter your social media game depending on the platform you're posting to?
Okay. So the type of content that works or has most retention, right? is a well executed content. And what I mean by well executed content is, let's pick a non-profit, right? As you give an example, feeding children in Africa, right? Let's say that's a non-profit. Although people hate those kind of non-profits, each to their own. If we pick that as an example, so the message is to feed people in Africa. Now, the founder or for the person who's handling social media, the challenge is to deliver the same message, right? That is, please donate to feed a person in Africa and repeat that message more efficiently each time. And it's probably, I would say, 40 or 45th video that they do, maybe that feels right for the audience. And that's when you have more retention or more engagement, and people stay and watch what you're doing.
Yes. How
Yes.
do that? Because you can
Mhm.
say, check out my nonprofit organization. You can put that in
Mhm.
every reel you post in the comments, but only your
Yes.
audience.
The mission of your nonprofit has to be repeated again and again. Like if your mission is to save water, you have to reiterate the same message, maybe using examples, case studies, giving testimonials of people who might have been impacted, right, from that particular mission. So they would say, yeah, this guy in Massachusetts who's saving water on a daily basis, and this is why he's saving water, and this is what it does. You're still delivering the same message of save water. And one thing that I would like to break the bad news to the founders of nonprofit is action percentage in social media is very less. For example, if you had could donate me link on your social media, and the same link on your website would have more donations than in social media. And I'm not talking about the amount of donation, but I'm talking about the number of donations, people who are going to that particular link, right? Coming to a second question, which platform is the best? I would say look at whom you want as your people. What I'm trying to say is if you want to be a skater, you go to a skating park, right? It's like that. Like you have to pick who your audience are. Because if you're looking at more established people, you go to Facebook. That's a pretty common marketing tactic. But if you're looking at quick traction and quick message, you go to TikTok or even Instagram. But if you're looking for more professionals or more corporate, you go to LinkedIn. So it depends on whom you want to target. And according to that, you have to pick your best social media because users are everywhere, right? Eyeballs are everywhere. You just need to connect with the right people.
No, that clarifies everything for me. Just knowing your audience, knowing the demographics and what platform they'll be most inclined to use. I
Yes.
want to ask now if people want to reach out to you or if they want to connect with you, send you an email. Maybe there's a nonprofit founder listening to this
Mhm.
podcast episode. Where can they find you? I know at the start of this episode, what you mentioned to me before we started recording that you have a podcast yourself. So I'd love if
Yeah.
you could tell us exactly where they can find you and if you have any resources available.
People can reach out to me. I would say I'm pretty much available on my email, and my email is sociastrat@gmail.com. So it's OCIAAT@gmail.com. And that's my website also, sociastrat.com. Just if they can just drop me a mail. So what we usually do is I get on a discovery call with them and understand what they require, right? And trust me, most of the time it is not something that I can make money on, right? Because most of the nonprofits that are starting out just need actionable advice. That's all they need. If you can reach out to me, and we can probably hop on a free discovery call and we can figure out how we can leverage social media.
Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and being an amazing guest. Please do check Ganesh out. And if you like this podcast and you want more episodes like this, please leave a review and share with a family member.
Thanks so much for me.